All right, everyone. Welcome back to the community conversation. I'm your host, Mike Collette. We have not done a community conversation in quite some time, but I am excited to have our guest slash prototype member slash former prototype of the month, Chris Lacasse, on today's community conversation brought to you by Prototype Training Systems. Chris, super pumped to have you on today. We just got coffee the other day. I think we were in the middle of scheduling this. I think you were emailing back and forth with Kayla, our administrator slash admin. So yeah, man, super pumped to have you on today.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, you got it. So Chris, I know you've listened to the episodes before, but would love to just hear your story. Just take us through what, how'd you find Prototype? Talk to us about your fitness journey, all that fun stuff, your experience, just like lay it out there and we'll rip.
Sure. Yeah. So my prototype journey, like most people, I think I've had a on again, off again relationship with fitness throughout my life. As a young kid, I was very active, right? So I was constantly playing pickup basketball, football in the street, baseball at the park with friends. It was back in the late 80s, early 90s when you could just go to the park and there was just people there and you just get games together and play. You'd be lucky if you had a baseball. It's like the movie The Sandlot where you're running around the neighborhood trying to find a ball. Yeah. So I was very active. I'm the youngest of three boys. So I had a couple older brothers that were constantly dragging me along. Very athletic kid, tried to be moving constantly. So that was kind of like, childhood up until college, right?
Where did you grow up, by the way? Did you grow up?
I grew up in Western Massachusetts, so Chicopee, Mass. So if anyone's ever driven west, maybe on the way to New York, they've likely driven through Chicopee.
I went to school out in Westfield, so I'm familiar with Chicopee. I think there's like some sort of like Marine base or something out there.
Westover, yeah.
Yeah.
Westover Air Force Base.
Yep. I remember going and visiting my friend who was in the Marines. He was stationed out in Chicopee for a little while. So that was my one time going into Chicopee was that time to visit him. I think we went to a bar and that was basically about it. So anyway.
Yeah, it's a reserve base now. It used to be an active base. And I always heard stories from people that back in the Cold War era, it was a pretty kind of scary thing because this was like a prime target, Westover, because it was such an active base. And you had essentially everything within, I don't know, miles and miles, like people had to do those get under the desk drill sort of thing. But yeah, Chicopee, a lot of the surrounding area around Westover is housing that was owned by or lived in by service members. And so for many years it was active, and then it turned into a reserve base. One of the schools I went to was actually on the Air Force Base that had formerly been a school for Air Force employees and their kids. So it's a interesting town, sort of like a very central location. It's a city of, I think when I was growing up there was about 55,000 people, and it's grown even more since then. If I don't know if we get to it later in this talk, I'll tell you a little bit more about my childhood, but it's definitely an interesting place where I grew up.
So you said you were one of the youngest of three kids, super active, grew up in Western Mass. What brought you out to this neck of the woods? You live in Grafton now, right? You just got so by the way, congratulations. I heard you just moved, got a new house.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. So you can see these cool bookshelves behind me. When I was looking at the house, I came into this office and I was like, oh, cool, that would make a good Zoom background. It's like the things you say now that you never used to say. But yeah, I gotta get some books.
That's like the background that people take a picture of to put as their background.
Yeah.
Now you're just gonna fill it with pictures.
Yeah, so I told my wife that I got to find like joke books, like where it'll say something that looks like a real book, but it'll like be something people have to figure out. So everybody here will be in on the joke, but maybe my coworkers won't notice.
Totally.
So we just moved to maybe 8 minutes away from where we lived. We moved to Grafton. So I'll back up a little bit. I grew up in Chicopee. I went to college at UMass Amherst, which is about 45 minutes north of Chicopee. When I graduated, I was looking for like a central location that was still close to family, but then also I could commute to like Boston or something like that for a job. back when I was getting started, you had to commute to work, like most of us, even some people still have to. Now I'm working remotely, but I wanted to be in close proximity to where there were software companies because I went to school for computer science. And so wanted to go work for, whatever company would hire me at the time. So I moved out to Worcester. Actually, I moved to Sudbury, lived there for about a year, and then I moved to Worcester. And then I met my wife, Heather. We decided we want to move in together. And then we moved to Grafton and bought a house. So Grafton, we chose Grafton because it's a perfectly central location. If you look at a map, you're just like, where do I want to live that's perfectly central? You point right there, like, all right, Grafton looks good. So we bought a house in Grafton thinking it was a starter house. Ended up being our house where we had our kids, raised our kids up until 10 and 8. And then we moved to this new house on my son's birthday, actually. So he just turned 11. And we closed on this house and have been moving here for the past 2 weeks. So I was in the middle of doing a bunch of projects and stuff. And I was like, oh, I have to go meet with Mike. So then I jumped on.
Awesome. Yeah, the moving is a pain in the ass.
It is.
Aaron and I got our house in 2019. And I just remember I was just like, we went from an apartment to our house, and it's like, even though we didn't have that much stuff, I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine moving like from a house to a house, especially with like kids and like all that other sort of stuff. So I'm sure that was a lot. It'll take a little bit longer to unpack all that stuff, the longer than it took us to unpack our stuff. So
yeah, me and my wife had kind of like an argument over the right way to do it. She wanted to go through everything on the other end. I just wanted to move everything here and then go through it. But we kind of compromised and figured it out. So we've got mostly everything moved now. I just have projects to fix up the old house and get it ready to sell. But yeah, we're excited about it. We got a lot more space. We went from a smaller house to a bigger house. So I could fit the entire contents of our old house in our garage. So you have all this space to work with, which makes it way easier to like clean things, organize things, because you have staging areas where you can move things to. In the old house, if we ever wanted to clean something or do a project, you were like playing that puzzle game where you only have one open square. You're like, all right, I'm gonna move something here and then I'm gonna move it there. But having more space is amazing, and I'm sure we're gonna enjoy it a lot.
It's awesome. So when did you say you moved to Grafton? It was like 10 years
That
ago?
was 2009.
Okay, got it. And then you started coming to Prototype a few years ago. And so what was that like? Talk to me about like, what were you doing before and all that sort of stuff. Give us a kind of a
Yeah. So I was telling you a little bit about my childhood, active childhood. I played football in high school. I wanted to play, all the sports, right? But my sport of choice was football. So did that, and then once I graduated, then I didn't have like organized sports to kind of continue on with. So I would, I started, getting gym memberships, go to the gym, work out. I would do that consistently for 3-4 months, maybe a year at a time. And then I'd slowly taper off as things changed. Something for me that's always been kind of tough to balance is whenever I've been doing really well at work, where I'm like really dialed in and focused on work, I just forget about my fitness, and everything else like takes a back seat. And then the opposite, then if I'm like getting into good shape and I'm like doing well and I'm active, then I'm like, all right, work can take a back seat. I got to go to the gym. So that's been like a decade long journey to figure out that balance. And it kind of feels like I'm there right now. But so anyway, yeah, so I think that Prototype was maybe 2017 or 2018. I was going to an Anytime Fitness, and I found a routine that was working for me. I'd kind of downloaded some online programs that I could do. I don't remember where they were from. And I was, feeling pretty good. And then I don't even remember how it happened, but like I came across like some YouTube videos of CrossFit, like professional CrossFit. Like I think it was like the movie they made, one of the earlier movies where they profiled some of the CrossFit games, and I was just like, this is really cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
It was just interesting, and like professional CrossFit really sucks you in. It's like, it's shockingly fun to watch
Totally.
because it's just, I don't know, people who've watched it, you just get sucked in. It's interesting. And so my wife and I watched some stuff together. I was like, I want to try that. So I Googled for the closest places, read some reviews. You guys had good reviews at CFP. So then I think I emailed back and forth, ended up talking to Joe, and then I came in for what was at the time called virtuosity sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got started that way. My first couple classes were crazy. Actually, you know what? Let me back up. I got to tell you a story related to my start in CrossFit.
Okay,
Before
cool.
I went to Prototype, I went to CrossFit New England. I
Yep.
worked on Speen Street in Natick,
Yep.
right across from the Natick Mall, and CrossFit New England was really close to that. So decided to go into a class and try it out. And so I'm in there, and at this point I had done like group training. I was familiar with a lot of the movements, things like box jumps and stuff. And so I'm in like my first class, and I paid for like a 5-class session. And I'm in the class and I'm, doing the movements. It's hard, but I'm looking around and there's people that are like doing things that look like they're going to hurt themselves. And I'm like, but then the coaches were not paying any attention at all. They were just off talking to each other. So I finished that class and I was like, oh, I got to find a different place. That's when I searched and found CFP. So then fast forward, doing the virtuosity sessions. It was such an awesome program because it was Joe Black was the coach who led me through those sessions, and it was very focused, very attentive, one-on-one sessions focused on each movement, building them progressively. He didn't care if I had experience in a squat. He was going to like walk me through each point of the squat in detail, and we did that. And I can't remember how many sessions it was, but got through those, and then joined my first classes after I was finished with those. I think my first class, I think I had to cut the workout short even because my cardio fitness was just so bad. Like, I was a runner. I was running at the time, like distance running, maybe like 5-6 miles at a time. So I felt like I was in good shape, but like getting into the high intensity CrossFit workout was just a whole different ballgame altogether. And so I would have to kind of cut short. And Brian was coaching a lot of the classes that I was attending at the time. And what I loved about Brian, I still love about Brian, is like he was focused on how I was doing. And he'd come over and he'd say, "How you feeling?" And he'd tell me to take a seat. Like, you're good. Like, you've had a good workout. Sit down. There's always another class, right? Like, so he would kind of like pay close attention and help me make sure that I was, working out in a healthy way rather than just pushing through something I wasn't ready for. So that's really stood out to me early on, was the coaching at Prototype, that each coach was paying really close attention to how I was doing, giving me real advice, real critiques. And so that's what kind of got me hooked in the beginning. At the time when I had first started at Prototype, I was still commuting into Boston. So not at Speen Street anymore. Our company moved to Boston. I was commuting into Boston on the train. It just was not a sustainable like schedule, right? And so then I kind of indexed a bit more on focusing on work, was doing really well at work again. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to not go to the gym anymore. So I did that for another couple of years. And then I think this was maybe right before the pandemic. I was in pretty bad shape again. I think I was like having a lot of heartburn when I was sleeping. I just wasn't feeling good. And so I think I emailed like Brian and Joe and was like, hey, like, I need to get back into the gym. Can you sign me back up? And they're like, yeah, we sign you back up. Come to the next class. So, and then since then I've been pretty consistent. I had a little bit of a hiccup during the pandemic where I didn't want to come into the gym and also didn't want to work out at home, but that was a kind of a short thing. So I feel like I've been really consistent since that point. Funny story about the consistency thing is like, I'm very much a creature of habit, right? So I have to build consistent habits, because as soon as I fall out of a habit, it's easy to ride that momentum and completely lose the habit entirely. I was watching I was watching a Joe Rogan podcast. This was before COVID. So Joe Rogan was like a little less crazy. Like I feel like he went really off the deep end after COVID. But it was an interview with this guy, David Goggins. Have you heard of this guy?
Oh yeah, I've seen,
This guy's
I've seen, and I'm very familiar with Goggins. Yep.
so
I got a poster in my painting of him in my office at home. I could show you that another time. But yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. So you know all about this guy.
It's a great podcast. But yeah,
So
the people listening,
anyone listening should look this guy up. But I was just listening to this guy talk, and this is a guy who was out of shape and basically was like disgusted with himself. He's like, I got to go do something. And I don't even know what like order of things led to him becoming an ultra runner, but he basically, got into these like really extreme challenges where he's running 50 plus milers, doing all kinds of things. I think he has like some pull-up record, like where he just did the most pull-ups for like such a long period of time. Anyway, so this guy is doing all this stuff, and I'm like, this guy doesn't need to take like a rest day every 2 days. Why do I feel like I need to take a rest day every 2 days? And I feel like that's what would kill the habit, right? I'd be like, all right, I just worked out a day. Oh, I'm sore. I should take a rest day tomorrow. My legs are sore. And that's a habit killer. Or if I work out 2 or 3 days in a row, I'm like, I worked out 3 days in a row. Why do I need to work out 4 days in a row? I should take a rest day, right? And so like fitting all these rest days in was something that I felt like was inhibiting my momentum and keeping me from building the habit consistently. And then I was like, you know what? This guy doesn't need rest days. Obviously, I'm not going to become an ultra runner, but at the same time, like he's not just doing one CrossFit class a day. He's running 50 milers and then doing it again a day later. I'm like, the human body is probably capable of a lot more than I'm giving it credit for. My body's capable of a lot more than I'm giving myself credit for. Why don't I just try doing CrossFit every day this week? Right. And I was like, let me just make a goal to just keep doing it daily. The first thing I noticed when I started doing it is the programming is really balanced, right? Like you guys are putting a lot of time in to make sure that if you're coming 5 or 6 days, you're not overtraining the same, muscle groups or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it worked out really well. And that was probably the thing that enabled me to get a consistent habit, was basically saying, unless I'm sick or injured, I can come into the gym, and I can dial it back if I need to, if I'm feeling tired. But I'm going to try to come in every day if I can.
Mm-hmm. The question I was going to ask you, you answered it, was like, what was the difference between how you change your habit of consistency versus the past? And you answered it with this mindset shift. I really like what you just said. I wrote it down as like this habit killer, that like the rest days that you were deliberately taking, you realized that it was impacting your ability to get into a good groove. And mm-hmm. that like you take that rest day, and then maybe life would happen, and then it's an extra rest day, and then the weekend happens, and then it's all of a sudden it's not just one day you've taken, it's like 3 or 4 or whatever.
Exactly.
So it's really interesting. Like and yeah, the back to the David Goggins, that podcast that he did with Joe Rogan is awesome. The book that, I don't know if you've read, Can't Hurt Me, that's the book that he wrote, which is an awesome book. Have you read it?
I have not, no.
So check that out. And then there's another cool book that this guy, Jesse Itzler, wrote called Living with a SEAL, which is a short read. It's actually really funny. You should read that one first. It's basically about Jesse Itzler, who I think he co-founded NetJets or NextJets, or that like, so he was like a rapper in like the 90s as well. He married the woman who started Spanx. Anyway, I'll let you listen to the story, but basically, well, the story goes is like, he saw David Goggins at one of these ultra races, and he's like, who the hell is that guy? He's like super overweight, and he's running on broken feet, and he's like bleeding everywhere. And he's like, I want that guy to train me. So he had Goggins live with him for like a month. And it's funny because it's like the stories of like how he would wake him up in the middle of the night, and just like what he would say to him. It's fun. I remember listening to it on a plane. I was like laughing out with like audio. I was like laughing out loud listening to like being narrated. So those are 2 books to check out. But yeah, that's so cool that you had that mindset shift. I'm curious. because you mentioned a few things like, your experience, your first workouts, like, do you have like a favorite movement or favorite workout now that you've been doing this like enough over the past several years? Like, is there something that comes to mind or favorite, like,
Yeah.
what's that?
So, I mean, my number one favorite movement is back squats. And the
Mhm.
reason for that is it just gives me confidence. I feel like I have a really strong back squat.
Mhm.
But that question has come up in class because the question of the day has repeatedly been like, if you could pick any workout, which one would it be? And one of my favorite CrossFit workouts, I think it was one of the open workouts, we've done it a few times, is it's a combination of rowing for calories and
Mhm.
wall ball shots.
Cool.
And this, I don't know, there's something I like about that. I think because squats are a strong movement for me, like wall ball shots, I can grind through them, and
Mhm.
rowing is a very strong movement for me. So like running is hard for me. That's one of the hardest like endurance things that I can do.
Mhm.
I'm kind of a little bit like bigger body. I have really big legs. I weigh 215 pounds. So like when I go out for a run, like it's like a lot of work for me.
Mhm.
Rowing, I'm sitting down, like I don't have to carry my body, and I
I'm
can
right. I'm
just
right
kind of
there with you.
power through with my legs.
I'm
So
right there with you.
rowing and then wall
Yep.
ball shots, I can grind right through. So that workout right there is like a really fun one. I think the last time we did that one or a variation on it, I pushed really hard and then had to lay on the ground for like 15 minutes after the workout. A few people came up and asked me if I was okay. I was like, I wanted to see how fast I could go.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Pushing the limits. I think that was 19.5 or 18.5. But oh, actually, no, I think it would have been rowing wall balls. I think no, it was 18.1 or 19.1. It was the first workout. And it was like 1919 for or 1414. I think it was 1919 reps for like 14 minutes, 15 minutes, 15-minute AMRAP, 1919, something like that. 19 wall. Anyway, I'll look it
I
up.
think we've done a couple variations that have been programmed in, and it's just a good like combination of movements.
Yeah, they're pretty gnarly. And another question I have for you is like, since kind of getting into that consistent routine and like working out more, like, what are your goals? Like, what are the things that you're kind of like pushing towards, or things that you're working on right now, or things that come to mind that kind of keep you motivated?
Yeah. So I think once once I've been consistently showing up, doing the workouts, um, you just kind of notice changes in your body where you just feel stronger, you feel more confident. And like for me, it doesn't have anything to do with the way I look. I feel like one thing about like your body and your image that I do like is like when I'm wearing clothes, I feel more comfortable. So like this is something a lot of guys probably understand. It's like when you're overweight, you like put your pants on and they don't stay in place if you have a belly. So like that's super frustrating. And so like being in shape, you're like, okay, I'm comfortable and I'm confident all the time in my clothes. I'm good. So like it sounds like a silly thing, but it's simple to say like as you go about your day, to not have to feel self-conscious in any way about your body is I think a very empowering thing. Um, but that's more of like a minor benefit to me. Like a more important thing is being ready for any kind of activity, right? And I think that's a sort of a central thing with CrossFit too. When I first was getting started, even when I was in what I thought was good shape, or I felt like I was fit, I was not, because I couldn't sit down on the floor and like play with my son without discomfort, right? So I had like such tight hips, tight lower back that I could go out for a run and I would feel good about it. I'd go to the gym and lift weights and feel good about it, but then I couldn't do other types of movements that most normal people could because I was so tight. Because I was probably like doing squats at the gym, but then I wasn't doing anything that helped with my mobility, no accessory movements at all. And so CrossFit and the programming, from like going 5 days a week and the sort of balanced programming has really helped with mobility, helped with like lots of different things. Most importantly, being able to just get down on the floor, play with my kids. They're getting older now; they don't want to get on the floor, but maybe they want to go for a bike ride. Maybe you want to do something else. Something that was really cool last year is my wife and I did a duathlon, and what was cool about it is this wasn't like a crazy endurance thing, right? Like a duathlon is a lot. So this was in the fall. We did a duathlon. It was a run, bike, run. It was a 2-mile run, 15-mile bike, and a 5K, which is a lot to do. but we didn't have to train for it at all. Right. All I did was come into the gym. I didn't do any specific cycling. I didn't do any specific running. I just came in for the CrossFit workouts and I could go do this event. Um, and so like being ready for that, being able to just sign up for something and go have fun with people, and do something that takes that kind of endurance. CrossFit does kind of give you that. And so being ready for anything, whether it's getting on the ground, playing with your kids, sprinting after your kids outside in the yard, playing soccer in the backyard with the kids, just being ready for all those things is, I think, a really, really important thing. And that's the most important thing to me.
Awesome. It's a great answer. And just in the sense of like, I mean, I circled what you said, like being able to sign up for something, have fun, basically like being prepared for the unknown is like one of the big elements of like CrossFit, but like having the capacity to do what you want to do when you want to do it is a whole nother thing, which is like, sounds like you're reaping the rewards of consistency, which is like, I think just kind of I've been doing this for a long time. Like consistency beats intensity 10 times out of 10. And like, it's just cool to hear kind of like how your mindset shifted. And like, it's a good lesson for anyone that's listening to this, is like, all it takes is basically like hearing that and then applying it. Like, I think like that framework that you use, Chris, could be really helpful for a lot of people that may be struggling with that same sort of thing. So that was really cool. I appreciate you sharing that. I have some final questions for you. I've prepped you for this. I'm going to spoil the secret to everyone out there. 2 truths and a lie. So this is your opportunity to stump me. I think I'm 1 in 3, if I remember my record correctly. It's been quite some time since I played this, but you got to give me 2 truths, 1 lie. I got to choose which one I think is the lie out of the 3. So don't tell me what one it is until after I guess. And then maybe we can explore some of those answers a little bit. So I'm not sure if that's a question. Maybe it is a question, but it's a little game that we're gonna play right now. I'm curious. I've given you like some prep, and see if you can stump me. What do we got?
All right, I got 2 truths and a lie. I'll go in no particular order here. All right, so I have run 2 half marathons. That does not count as a marathon. 2 separate events. I played football for 12 years, organized football, American football, if there's any Europeans listening to this. And I have lived in Massachusetts my entire life.
Okay. All right. All of these things sound like they're true, but slightly. So the living in Massachusetts your whole life, there, you didn't bring that up at all in this conversation because you grew up in Chicopee and then you went to UMass and then from there moved to Sudbury, Worcester, Sudbury, then to Grafton. So I feel like that's true, unless you didn't say something to me at some point. Maybe you were born somewhere else, which you didn't mention that. So I'm going to chalk that up as a true. Football for 12 years. I know you said you played in high school, so there's 4 years there. Then you have middle school, elementary school. So technically it could be 12 years. Started playing in the kindergarten or the 1st grade. So that could be true. The running 2 half marathons, you did say that you ran a lot and you did this duathlon. I want to say you played football for more or less than 12 years. That is the lie.
Got it.
Oh my God. Yes.
Really good.
Yes. All right. I'm so excited. I'm going to go home and I'm going to brag about this to Aaron. Okay. So, all right. So talk to me. So you did two half marathons. You didn't bring that up. So when was that?
It was I think I ran the first inaugural Worcester half marathon. And then I did it a year after that. So 2 years in a row, I did that one.
It's awesome. And that, when was that?
2010, maybe. I don't know when the first one was. It was quite a while ago.
Okay. So yeah, about 10 plus years ago. And then, so you did grow up in Mass. So how many years did you play football?
Only 4 years in high school.
4 years.
Yeah.
Knew
So
it.
there's a slightly funny story with that is
Yeah.
I did want to play Pee Wee football, but when I went down to try out, they told me I was overweight. It was the strangest thing. And then so I they turned me away, and I was like, no, I don't want to. Guess I don't want to play. And then I ended up playing in high school. I played. I was bigger at the time. I'm a normal size guy now, but when I was a kid, I was taller and bigger, so I played tight end and defensive end.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I played football 1 year when I was in 5th grade, and so it was Pop Warner, and I was a heavier kid too, and they put me on the B team, which was like one step above that would have been the heaviest team, but like I was the only 5th grader, and everyone else was like 6th, 7th, 8th. There was even like a couple 9th graders on this Pop Warner team. And so I'm like, me and 2 other kids were the youngest ones on the team. And I think I was like 2nd or 3rd string, like offensive lineman. And I did not have any fun. I got in great shape, but I had absolutely zero fun. And I was like, all right, I'm going back to, so anyway, to that point about like the weight thing and how it can make it like not want to play when you're younger. I can totally appreciate that. Chris, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you getting on today and talking through all this stuff. This is cool. I did not know a lot of this stuff in your journey. And so I appreciate you coming on and talking about this today. For everyone that's out there listening right now, appreciate you tuning in to Community Conversation. We're getting back into this consistency, back into this habit of getting these community conversations out to you every single week. You guys can check this out on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We also have this streaming on YouTube as well if you want to watch the actual video of this. But until next week, we'll see you then. And Chris, thank you again, my man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Got it.